I hope my I hope my screen is visible now. Let me turn it into full screen. Okay. Yeah, we will be talking about institutional animal care and use committee. We will call abbreviate those as IACUC, IACUC. Okay, so these are my lecture objectives today that you can review later on. So let's start with a background. Why animals are important in research, in biomedical research? First of all, for any research intervention, it will be very tedious to do any sort of experiments or optimizations or validation in humans, right? So we need to go for ideal models which can replicate the human disease or human biological mechanisms. That's why we rely mostly on animal models. There are so many reasons. Some of them I listed here. First of all, these animals basically they are biologically similar to humans, and many of those animals, depending upon the system or depending upon the disease which we are interested in, they exhibit more or less similar health issues. And also that means we can easily replicate the pathological as well as physiological conditions which are ongoing in a human patient in many of those animals. Another advantage is their short lifespan. So, for example, if we do an experiment in a mice or rat, we can complete the entire experiments within 6 months to 1 year. So, because their lifespan is so small and we can replicate all those human pathological as well as physiological conditions in those animals. And also, if you want to see the effect of a particular disease over generation, that is also possible due to their shorter lifespans. And also, we can control their growth environment. For example, if we are working on a disease condition which require highly humidified environment, for example. So we can create such type of environment for these animals, and we can manipulate those environmental conditions according to the need of our research. And another important is we can test compounds, we can test drugs, we can uh, test implantation or surgical related things in animals, which cannot be possible in humans. So animals have contributed significantly. We sacrificed significantly for the advancements of biomedical research. So even though these animals are being used, we need to have a clear policy. We need to have a clear guidelines in order to prevent the overuse or abuse of animals. That's where ICAC stands for. So, as I mentioned, ICAC is Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. This committee, ICAC, is an independent committee responsible for reviewing and approving animal research protocols. So, the major role of ICAC is to oversee the animal research and give guidelines and give proper review regarding all those animal protocols to ensure that none of the animals are being ill-treated. And also, the ethical use of animals is being overseen by the ICA committee. And ICA is under the regulation of several regulatory agencies, for example, Animal Welfare Act and regulations. For any universities or private research facility which work with animals, they need to comply with AWAR policies. And also, if we are working any animal research in public sector, for example, if we look into some disease causing in domesticated animals or in the, for example, in the poultry or in any farms, we may have to comply with PHS policy. And also, there are other policies like Health Research Extension Act. So we need to comply with all these regulatory agencies in order to run an animal experiment. And what are the major roles of ICIC? As I mentioned, the primary goal is to ensure humane treatment and utilization of animals. Because if there are alternatives for animals, definitely the ICIC will review those and recommend to go for alternative route. For example, in computational models or in vitro models or three-dimensional 3D culture models like that. So many alternatives are available. If our research can satisfy with those models, definitely I would recommend to take that route, and also to ensure the human treatment of animals. And a review is another important uh, role for ICAC, whether all the protocols which involves any animal experiments will be reviewed by the ICAC. They look into all those policies, all those protocols and SOPs, standard operating procedures, where the animals are being handled in a nicer way. And also they inspect all the facilities. ICAC ensures that the animal research facility is appropriate to conduct all those experiments. And also, on a biannual basis, I could prepare reports and submit to the institutional official, or IO. IO is the overall charge of university. For example, in our case, for Western University, we have a senior vice president for research who is acting as IO, institutional official. So IO will be evaluating all those reports and reporting to federal agencies if required. And another particular role is the minimal use of animals. So they will see whether the animal numbers are more, and they will see whether they follow typical statistical power analysis to identify the right population of right study population. Like that, they will look into all those things. And also, ICAC would make recommendation to the university officials, that is in IO, to uh, to introduce new programs for animal welfare, as well as facility improvement and training for the personnel. So these are the major roles. So if we comprehend all these things, first of all, the particularly ICAC will be primarily looking into the humane treatment of animals, animal utilization, as well as review. So these three are the major role when we look into ICAC. And also, when we divide these into three different categories, first of all, um, ethics in animal welfare. So they will see whether all those protocols and all those procedures are following the ethical compliance. And then they will look into the research integrity, whether these experimental design or the hypothesis uh, which is involved in that research is ideal for the research, and those type of activities they will be reviewing into. And also they see the regulatory framework, for example, whether it is compliant with all those agencies which I mentioned before. They will keep all the confidentiality, and also the regulatory burden will be on ICAT too. So, to conclude those, the primary goal of ICAC is to ensure all animal research complies with regulatory regulations and policies mandated by all those agencies which we mentioned before. And when we look into ICAC consists of a team. So a team involve one veterinarian who is a trained veterinarian who has significant experience in working with laboratory animals, and also they have they should have experience in veterinary medicine as well. So a veterinarian is an integral part, and also there should be one practicing scientist, again, who has experience working with animals. There should be one non-scientist member. So he or she could be an ethicist, a lawyer, or a member of a clergy. Because a non-scientist member, especially from a normal social background, should be involved in that committee to oversee whether these policies are applicable in a broader perspective. And also, we need to have a non-affiliated member. Non-affiliated member means, for example, if we consider the ICO committee of Western U, we we do have a couple of members outside Western U. So that means those members should be able to give an unbiased opinion when we consider animal protocols. And additional members could be possible. There could be reviewers from different expertise, and also there could be additional veterinarians. But these three, four numbers: veterinarian and practicing scientist, non-scientist, and a non-affiliated member. These are very mandatory for any ICAC committee. And when to submit an ICAC proposal. So if you are planning to do any research involving animals or animal parts or fluids, body fluids, definitely we need to go for ICAC approval. So first, these three criteria: animal research, research involving animal parts, animal body parts, or animal fluids. Yes, we need ICAC approval. So if we are looking into just animal body parts, for example, a animal carcass or a body fluid, again, we need to submit a proposal. I will show you how to write a proposal in the forthcoming slides. So then they will be reviewing this protocol. And once the ICAC is convinced that, okay, this research complies with all those policies, then they will give approval. Otherwise, they will give us suggestions, they will give us recommendation, and they will ask us to modify the protocol and resubmit again to get it approved. And if we work with live animals, there are two sets of studies. First of all, research studies, clinical studies, or teaching or demonstration. Definitely, we need ICAC protocol. And another set of studies, for example, if you are doing an observational study in the field, or if you are doing any study without having any direct contact with animals, definitely you need to contact ICAC office and they will give approval in a different way. So that is all about the proposal submission. To comprehend this, to summarize this, any research that involves animals, animal parts, or fluids, definitely we need to get an approval from ICAC. And this is the pathway for ICAC protocol submission. First of all, you need to get ready with your protocol, and you will be submitting it to ICAC office. Before sending for review, ICAC will go for an review with the attending veterinarian. So veterinarian will be looking into all overall aspects, and once veterinarian review is complete or approved, then it can be into three different committees, three different aspects. First of all, it's a convened meeting. That means these protocols will be sent for review. Either it could be a new submission or a renewal, or if you have any significant change, definitely it should go to reviewers who are experts in the field of research as well as animal protocols. So reviewers will be reviewing. At least we will be sending to two reviewers. One reviewer is called primary reviewer and the other one is secondary reviewer. They both review the protocol from page 1 till last, and then they make all those comments. And once they made their comment, it will be coming to the committee. The ICA committee meets once in a month, and in that committee, the primary and secondary reviewers will be presenting that particular protocol over the committee, and committee will be discussing it, giving additional suggestions. There will be additional suggestions as well as if more information required. They put all those things together, and all those review reports will be sending back to the investigator. So investigator has to revise and send it back. There are another round of review called DMR, or designated member review. For example, if the changes are very minor, to cite, if I want to add a investigator to my protocol, so that is a very minor change, it will go for designated member review. Or if I want to amend my protocol, so for example, my treatment plan was to put my animals in a medication for a month, but later on I realized that, okay, 1 month is not required. I can cut it down to 15 days or 2 weeks. In that case, this is a minor change. So when a already approved protocol that requires minor changes, it will go to designated member review. Again, it will be going to primary and secondary reviewers. They will go through all those modifications or changes, and they will approve. There, in this case, in designated member review, there is no need for a full committee review. So the investigator no need to wait for a month to see what the ICA committee recommends. So they get the DMR. Usually, it will be approved as early as possible. And if the reviewers feel, oh, that even though it's a designated member review, it requires a full committee revision or full committee discussion or full committee review, they will recommend for full committee review, and it will go through the actual process. And another set of review is chair review. For ICAC, there will be a chair. A member has been elected as a chair. Chair also can review minor changes and put approval and give approval by addressing those comments. So this is the overall route. So we need to have a proposal. It should be submitted to ICAC. Depending upon the protocol, whether it is a new or significant changes, they will assign convened or DMR or chair review. Accordingly, we will get comments, and finally, once we address all those comments satisfactorily, we will get approval. And when we look into a proposal, an ICAC proposal, these are the major components to go with. First of all, there should be a lay abstract. Lay abstract means we need to write the abstract of our entire research protocol in a layman terminology. Because if you see the committee, there is a non-scientific member who is a layperson who has no in-depth knowledge or experience in research or animal-related experiments. So we need to convince them that our research is ideal and our research require animals, and once we do these studies in animals, it can help millions of sufferers across the globe, or there should be an outcome which the end goal will be to support or improve human lifestyle. And also there will be investigators and key personals. We need to justify the animal use. We need to give details regarding the experiments. And there is one special category where we need to give what type of pain management we give and how we ensure the pain and distress to the animals are minimal. And finally, we need to euthanize all the animals and how we go for that. Let's see one by one. As I mentioned, lay abstract, it should be written for a non-scientific audience. Usually it will be very short, maybe less than 250 words, less than a page. The main communicating points are to ensure the study should be understandable by a common man. So we should not use any technical terminology. Instead, use lay terminology so that it should be understandable to the public. And always mention the main research question, the methods, and the anticipated results, and how it is going to improve human lives. Then we need to have the investigators and key personals. Usually, the principal investigator is the one going to direct or guide all those, oversee all those research related activities. We need to list all the investigators associated with this protocol, and whoever is going to work with animals, whoever is touching the animal, definitely their name should be listed over there. Instead of along with their name, we need to have their experience, their expertise, and what training they got for going with these animal studies, and what are their specific roles and duties in this protocol. And also, if a new person who has no prior experience, and we need to have how these new persons are getting trained. So all these things should be listed, even though these are minute things. It will be always advisable to list all their credential in the investigator session, so that that will give ICAC the credibility that okay, this research is going to be uh, viable in an animal compliance perspective. And also, when we prepare the proposal, we need to justify the number of animals. Okay, first of all, we need to give a clear picture that why we are going for this animal studies. Is there any alternative available? And give the details of the databases and the keywords which you use for your literature search. And then definitely we need to give the dates. For example, every time when we see, we need to review at least 15, 20 years of literature from the databases. And we need to mention from which year to which year we did literature survey to see whether how this animal are going to be relevant for this particular set of experiments. And also, we need to emphasize that there is no alternative. For example, we cannot get reliable data based on computer simulations or in vitro cell culture. So we must have to go for an animal experiment. So those justifications we need to give. And if you generate any preliminary data, either from your own laboratory or from your collaborator or even from the literature, you can use those preliminary data to support your experiment and protocols. And definitely, we need to do a power analysis. Power analysis is a statistical tool to identify the number of animals in each set of experiments and how many animals are required, minimum numbers are required for each experimental groups. So that is a statistical power analysis tool. There are several online applications are available where we can get all those things done online. And also, we need to follow the 3R principles. I'm sure you all know what 3R principles are: replacement, reduction, and refinement. We need to apply 3R principles, and our goal is to emphasize on to stay with minimum number of animals. So we always apply 3R principles to go for that. And then experimental details. Again, we need to give the objectives and hypothesis in lay terminology. Many of the reviewers, they are from non-scientific background, so it should be understandable for them. And as I mentioned, we need to include some preliminary data or data from the literature to support our protocol, and detailed SOPs, standard operating procedures, for example, how the treatment is done, how the surgery is done, what are the procedures, and who is doing what, and post-treatment medications, how we manage. All those things should be discussed in those things. And also justify each pharmacological or non-pharmacological agents used. For example, if you are testing a compound, if you are testing a drug, you need to see why this is important, how you prepare this, and from where you purchase. All sort of information needs to be listed in that protocol. There are in if you go to any university, any ICAC protocol submission forms, there will be rooms for these type of information. So we need to be very precise and concise, and we need to give specific details for each agents which we are going to use for in the animals. And we need to have a clear idea about the end goals. When we are going to end this study, and what are the criteria to end this study? What will we do if we are not meeting the criteria? So, for example, our goal is to inject a molecule and see whether it can reduce inflammation. So, we inject the molecule, and if the inflammation is not reducing, what will we do? So at the worst case, we need to sacrifice the animal. So we need to give all those detailed plans, whether if our plan A doesn't work, how do we go forward with plan B, and what are the endpoints, and how we determine the endpoints, and all those things needs to be included in those experimental details. And also, again, pain and distress, definitely we need to ensure our research protocols emphasize on preventing pain as well as giving very minimum distress in the animals. So those are very, very important. And we need to clearly define the pain categories. There are three major pain categories which are involved in ICAC protocols. First one is category C, where there is no pain or distress. Maybe the animals encounter slight or momentary pain or distress. For example, when we do some injections or non-invasive imaging, when we handle the animal, many animals we do ear punches to mark them. So these are not giving any severe pain or distress, but these are momentarily. So that will be coming under category C. And pain category D includes uh, pain and distress would be there, and that can be relieved using drugs. For example, the surgeries, survival surgeries, if we are doing a implantation, or if you are doing a surgery or suturing, or if you are introducing any catheters or any intervention, those will induce pain and distress to the animal. So we need to have clear idea, clear treatment plan, clear medication plans to minimize these pain and distress when we look into category D. And category E, again, severe pain and distress, but no relief is provided. For example, if we are studying something related to pain, how an animal or how a patient respond to the pain. So that means we cannot give any pain medications over there. At the same time, we need to make tolerable pain and distress, and at the same time, we need to justify in detail why we are going with category E for pain and distress management. So those things are very, very important. The key idea here is you can do any type of experiments, provided you are justifying it, you are giving a scientific rationale, and you are giving proper guidelines and SOPs how you manage and cope up with those particular set of experiments. That is very, very, very important. And we need to understand how animal respond to the pain. If animal is under pain, what are the symptoms? First of all, they will be guarding every time they are trying to protect. Usually those animals are very handy. Sometimes if they are under pain or distress, they will not come, they move away, they start attacking, I mean biting, like that. And also the vocalization, you need to see, most of the time they will be crying, palpating, those things. And always, if they are trying to self-harm, like scratching by themselves, itching, shaking, rubbing, again, those are signs of pain and distress. And also, uh, there should be some sort of behavioral patterns. For example, pacing. They will be circling around continuously, flipping, etc. Those symptoms, those behavioral changes signify the animal is under distress. And prolonged recumbency, they will be on recumbency position and not moving around. That is another thing. They seems to be depressed and abnormal appearance. All these things we need to understand to see whether the animal is under pain or not. If we encounter any sort of pain symptoms, definitely immediately we need to contact the attending veterinarian to come and check the animals, and they will provide the medications, appropriate medications to relieve their pain. And then euthanasia. Once we complete our experiments, we need to euthanize our animals. That is, again, it falls under uh, falls under our compliance protocol. So here, when we euthanize animal, we need to ensure the humane disposition. We need to make the animals euthanize by minimizing or eliminating or totally eliminating their pain and distress. Okay, this is routinely accomplished by rapid unconsciousness and subsequent death. So we need to ensure the animal is unconscious and then slowly uh, towards the death. Ensure minimal suffering. We need to make sure animal is not having any pain or distress or any sort of disturbance during euthanasia procedure. And also, we need to confirm our euthanasia procedure with the ICAC committee. It should comply with all those euthanasia protocol, and we need to verify death. There are several occasions when we think the animal is dying, but it is not actually being dead. So we need to have a secondary procedure to ensure the animal is dead. So after giving euthanasia, people do decapitation, or sometimes they do cervical dislocation like that. So there should be a secondary method to confirm the death of animal. Okay, usually the overdoses of anesthesia or carbon dioxide inhalation, or people even try physical methods to ensure euthanasia. So these things, there are protocols, there are standard set of SOPs available. We need to follow those things and ensure euthanasia is proper in our ICAC protocol. Yeah, instead of these things, there are several additional components which we need to focus on when we prepare our protocol. First of all, veterinary care, pain and distress, we already mentioned. Personal qualification and training, these things we already discussed. And also occupational health and safety. So it, whoever is working with animals, it could be the investigators or researchers or those who are from the animal house, whoever is encountering with animals, there should be having a health and safety protocol compliance. And also we need to look into animal facilities and husbandry. So for example, if we are proposing an experiment, suppose we don't have that facility here, then that protocol will not go through. At that time, we need to either collaborate with some other facility, or we need to have a clear backup or plan B to ensure or to cover all those facilities within our protocol. And also emergency and disaster planning, it should be included in our protocol. We can see one by one. Okay, veterinary care, again, we need to list all those facilities, personnel, equipments, and services available within our laboratory, as well as our core facility, as well as within our university, which is accessible to the personnels who work with animals, as well as to the investigators. And also, we need to plan the treatment for diseases or injuries. For example, if an animal, when we work with pigs, sometimes these pigs hit their head in the pen, and get some injuries. We need to have a clear plan for if by emergency injury or anything happens, what we will do, and who is taking care of these animals over holidays or weekends. So all those things we need to be clearly, precisely mentioned in our protocol. And also preventive medicine. For example, when we do large animal surgeries, we need to many times we start giving aspirin 3 or 4 days before, because when we do surgery, the clot formation and all those things needs to be minimal. So we need to do all those preventive medications or pre-medications. Again, very, very important to ensure the relief of pain and distress. I am repeating this so many times because that is one of the key factors which I could look into, whether your animal is under pain or under distress, and how you are going to manage those things. Definitely, method of euthanasia and endpoint should be clearly mentioned there. And for the personals, you need to undergo several set of trainings. There are city trainings. I know some of you work with animals. They underwent all the city trainings and everything. If you want to touch animal, you need to go all those minimum set of trainings, which is essential for anyone to work with animals. So these are the agencies that give proper training or training guidelines for the investigators who work with animals. Another one is OHS, Occupational Health and Safety. We need to identify potential hazards to the animals and to the personals, and we need to have safeguard to uh, to to prevent those risk. For example, if we are working with an animal with a pathogen, for example, a virus or a bacteria which can cause disease, the persons who work with animals, persons who take care of the animals, as well as the investigators, they need to have properly identified with the health risk and safety patterns, and then they need to design the experiments accordingly to minimize or totally avoid any health hazard or safety concerns. For example, we need to have appropriate testing for those pathogens in those personals. We need to advocate for vaccines, other personal training training duties and hazards. We related to hazards, we need to go for that. And also we need to have proper training with personal hygiene, good hygiene practices, and using personal protective equipments, PPEs, and all those things. That is very, very important. So we in ICAC, we always work in association with occupational health and safety, especially in our Western U. In our ICAC committee, we have members coming from OHS, and they will also review all these protocols and see whether any health or safety concern is there. If they identify something, they will recommend to address those things so that we can ensure our animals, our researchers, as well as whoever is taking care of the animals are safer when dealing with these experiments. And also, we need to see the facilities and husbandry. For example, as I mentioned, if we are doing a large animal surgery, for example, if you want to do an angiography, if we don't have a facility here, definitely we do have here, but for example, if we don't have a facility here, when we propose such type of experiments, we need to clearly mention where we are going to do, who is going to do, and how we transfer or transport the animals there. And do we have a collaboration or a letter of approval from the other facility, whether it is being approved by our university. So several lines of collaborative patterns, we need to look into those type of things. And definitely SOPs, standard operating procedures, we need to have SOPs for each and everything. Why? Because if consider a situation, if we are not available here and somebody else is going to take care of our animals, they need to follow exactly what we did or what we anticipated. So SOPs are very, very important. And food and water management, bedding. Bedding means these animals, they require some sort of bedding materials. So how we go with the ideal bedding and how we dispose those things. So all those sort of general facility and husbandry related things needs to be included and mentioned in the proposal. And another important thing is disaster planning. So if in case of any emergency, how we ensure the pain, distress, or mortality among animals are minimal. And who is going to do what? That is another important in case of emergency. For example, if something happens over the weekend, who needs to be contacted and what would be his role to manage with all those emergency issues. So these are the major points to consider when we look into when we prepare any iCook application. So these are the two uh, important information. The first one is the form where our university provides. So this form contain all those things. I just put the screenshot of the first page. This is, I think, 13 or 14 pages. We need to fill all those information. Whatever I mentioned in the slides, there are specific sections where you need to add all these things into this protocol. And we have a centralized system called IRB net. So IRB net, you need to register first. And then if you are submitting a protocol, it should go through IRB net. So this will be a very handy as well as channelizing platform. Once you submit it, it will go to the administrative review. Once administrative review is over, administrator can assign to the reviewers. Reviewers can submit the comments into the same platform, which will be sent out for modifications or revision to the investigator. So we work with using this platform called IRBnet. This is pretty universal across the country. So almost all universities go with IRBnet. So these are the overview. Definitely, we must thank uh, all those animals which are being sacrificed by hundreds of thousands of researchers across the globe so that we ourselves will have a better life. Okay, thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask now. I forgot to mention one more thing. For the last 5 years, I have been working with Western U ICAC. So that's why probably I was asked to take this course. Yeah, any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, these are the very fundamental information. Anytime uh, you can review this, I think I can share these slides. And also, even if you are not working with animals, it is always good to know these fundamental basic things. Okay, I don't think you have any exam or anything, right? Do you have? Do you need an exam on this? Okay. Yeah, so this is for your knowledge and for your information.
Thank you.